Hello.
We haven't done this in so long. I was like, what do we do?
I know, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking like the first thing we should do is reintroduce ourselves.
Yeah. You go ahead.
You go ahead.
You go ahead.
Okay. I'm Mia Schachter. I use they, them pronouns. Actually, this is great because I'm trying to introduce myself in like with my personal priorities of like what I do in a different order than perhaps I have in the past. I'm a writer and an artist. And my background is in intimacy coordination and consent education. So those are the lenses I bring to much of my work. And I still do those things. I still teach consent and I still intimacy coordinate on TV and film sets and for theater. And we are going to be explaining today a lot about what that job is because of the topic.
Okay, cool. I'm Risdon Roberts. My pronouns are she, they. I'm the whore half of this cast. Me is the twink. They're drinking water, so I'll just do that for you. I've been saying that I work in intimacy, basically. I'm just me, intimacy coordinator. I work a lot in relational repair, using restorative practices, and I'm doing consent education. I apparently am somebody that people reach out to now to talk to about sex work, which is really funny. BBC interviewed me recently about Honora.
Nice.
No, bizarre. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm sure I'm forgetting something.
Do you want to share a little bit about any of like the one-on-one work that you do, whether it's like cancellation?
Mostly of my coaching right now, I'm working with sexual dysfunction clients primarily, usually single people, but sometimes in couples. And then working in what I've been calling relational repair, which tends to usually be people who need a sort of a mediator facilitator post breakup or post cancellation, basically. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Are you no longer saying that you do surrogate partner?
No, I just forgot. And I'm also a surrogate partner. Okay. Sometimes the dysfunction umbrella is big enough that I need to get in the room with the client, and then we also use a therapist for that. So yeah, in certain situations. So yes, I'm also a surrogate partner, apparently.
Okay, great.
That's the whole podcast. Thanks for listening.
That's all we were able to do today. I'm gonna go to sleep now.
Yeah, me too.
Oh boy.
Boy.
Yeah. Okay. So today we are entering into the grocery store checkout line and going through the magazine headlines, specifically with regard to what's going on with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. And I'm like choking on it as I say it. I can't.
It's like, it's weird to be like straight from the pages of Us magazine, but also I do feel like it's worth us exploring because I think, I said this to you before we started, there's a lot of discourse about this conflict, lawsuit, whatever, and I think we're not hearing that much from people whose perspectives are working with consent, being intimacy coordinators. And I know you were interviewed by, was it the Hollywood Reporter?
I'll explain.
Great.
Oh, okay. Well, so like a month and a half ago, I got an email from a reporter at the Hollywood Reporter asking if I would speak on this video that Justin Baldoni's team released. It was like a 9-minute clip that they said vindicated him and showed that like Blake was lying, basically. So I truly think I was just like, I happened to be on my email in that moment and was the first person that got back to her. And then what followed has been like a really crazy roller coaster. So I watched the video. I talked to the reporter about it. I've been interviewed in the Hollywood Reporter before as an intimacy coordinator, and the article was like me and 6 other intimacy coordinators with a few quotes from each person. So that's what I was envisioning. And then the article came out, and it turned out it was just me, and it was like a verbatim transcript of my interview. So I was shocked. And then all these emails started coming in. I got interviewed by another magazine, and then I got an inquiry from like a documentary film crew, and then another documentary crew, and then I was on CBS Inside Edition, like the nightly news. I was like in people's kitchens at 7 p.m. A friend of mine was like, I saw you on the news. And then I was on the Law and Crime podcast with Jesse Weber. Like, anyway, so I sort of like overnight became like the spokesperson, like inadvertently became the spokesperson for intimacy coordinators on this massive like media issue. And then the Hollywood Reporter article went viral and like got picked up by, and quoted in every entertainment news media outlet, like literally around the world. So it's been a little crazy over here. But basically, I think you're right, other than me. And then now a small handful of other intimacy coordinators. I think The Guardian did another one. There's not a lot of discussion around there's not a lot of informed discussion about what an intimacy coordinator actually does and what protocols on a set are for intimacy on screen, whether or not it's written. So that is where we want to go today.
Yeah, I think I was saying before, it just feels like there's a lot of misunderstanding and using like conventional workplace lenses to try to understand this conventional sort of like, for lack of a better term, like Fry's model consent to be like, we're watching this, I don't know why they were rolling between takes, but it happens. Like we're watching them sort of improv this scene before they start shooting, and therefore that means XYZ. And you brought up some really interesting points about, there's a couple of things I want to talk about, but I thought one of the things you brought up that was so interesting is like the way that sometimes the actor Baldoni, it seemed like, wanted to like add things that were unscripted in that, like into that scene, which was kind of like, ooh, as an IC felt like, ooh.
Yeah. Well, so a couple things. One is that I think we should define what this job is, like really the scope of it. And two, just to clarify, that video was not them rolling between takes. It was them trying to get footage that they could use then to intersperse and show in slow motion. So that was not a rehearsal. That was them rolling for footage.
Okay. All right. I was like, why is there so much talking happening? Because it was MLS.
Because they weren't,
right.
Yeah, they weren't using any of the sound.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
So do you want to share your, like what you tell people an intimacy coordinator is, and then I'll say mine?
Well, yeah, I'm like, I wonder if we should start by talking about what we don't do. But I think something we've talked about is people think that we're the sex police. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's sort of an aversion, and why sometimes actors are averse to having us on set, is they think that we're kind of like making sure that that we might get in the way of the magic or the chemistry or something by like making something overly puritanical or sort of being cops. I really try to push my agenda is that intimacy coordinators are brought in pre-production. Like that's my biggest thing, because this movie's a great example, and I've been brought into projects too where it's like shit goes down and then they want us to come and fix it. And I'm like, I'm actually not a crisis manager. My job is to like look at the script, talk to the director, get a sense of their vision, and then talk to the actors so that the actors are informed and they can share with me, instead of engaging in the power dynamic with production or the director directly, about what they're comfortable with and what they're not comfortable with. And then I can talk to production and the director so that I'm sort of like a buffer between, if that makes sense. And then obviously there's a lot of other stuff too, but yeah.
Yeah, I explain it by saying that I am a person who helps negotiate consent and boundaries around scenes that include simulated sex and nudity. And that can expand into, beyond that, into like intimate content, intimate touch, erotically charged content, things like that. And much like a stunt coordinator, I'm there to make it look real and be safe and replicable. So my job is to function as a liaison between and a neutral third party between actors and the rest of production. So that's the directors, the producers, the writers. And then I help coordinate across many departments: hair and makeup, costumes, sometimes set deck, props, legal, the production office, to make sure that everyone is on the same page and that we have all the clearances we need to shoot what we said we were going to shoot. And then during shooting, I make sure that we stick to that the script supervisor has that information, and it all gets relayed to the post team, so the editing team, and that we get all the footage that we need in order to cut together what the director wants to see.
And I think too, like this thing of, you reminded me, like we also close the set. That's kind of our job too, which I think is relevant to this. That was one of the things that really made me clutch my pearls about the story.
Right. A closed set is a term that refers to a set that has like only essential personnel present, where the what's called the dailies, which is the footage from that day, are restricted, which means that they only go out to certain people. We use black fabric, like big flags on tripods to block vision so that these scenes are done with as much privacy as possible. Yeah, and sometimes that means like making sure that certain monitors are turned off or turned towards a wall, or that no one's walking through certain areas. And that is like a particular set of protocols required by SAG-AFTRA, which is the actors union.
I think people don't know that it's like being on set is sort of like being on a pirate ship. Like that's what it is. Like, it's like there's the captain and there's the people in the captain's hub, and then there's all the sailors, and then there's the guys swabbing the deck, and there's people like there's crafty, there's somebody trying to give you fruit snacks and hand sanitizer. Like it's organized chaos. And I think when people are like, well, a closed set, essential personnel, it's like there's people from art department running into a scene in between takes where somebody is half naked, you know what I mean? So making sure that in those sensitive scenes that it's really only the people who need to be there, we're creating sort of a safer container.
Yeah. In prep, what we do is we go through the script and we take note of any scene that has anything akin to simulated sex, nudity, sensitive material in that regard. And then we discuss each scene one by one with the director to get a sense of what it is that they want to see and how they want to tell that story. And then we go to the actors privately first to get a sense of their comfort. Sometimes people have never done a scene like this before. They've never even kissed someone on screen before. And sometimes people are veterans. They've done it a million times. Sometimes a director or producers will assume that an actor is comfortable doing things because they've done them in the past, but they no longer want to do that. So we talk to the actors about kind of where they're at with what's written. And then from there, we share what the director wants to see. And if there's any discrepancies between their comfort and what the director wants to see, we'll propose alternatives. Like, that the director wants to see this in a wide, but you don't want to show that much of your body. So how would you feel about shooting it from the waist up? Okay, you don't want to show your chest. Okay, like from the chest up, like if we're implying nudity. So that's the kind of creative problem solving that we get into. And then from there, we can talk to the director can talk to the actors, we can all do it together, they can do it on their own. There's a lot of like different ways to go about it. but the idea is to find a way to achieve what the director sees in their mind's eye within the actor's comfort.
Yes, so that like as like because often I can say, having been an actor and somebody who did a lot of like kind of sexy stuff, like often it would just be like they make out on the page,
Right.
and I wouldn't know anything, and I would get to set and they'd be like, cool, so you're gonna dry hump and you're gonna be topless, and I'd be like, and nobody would be directing the scene. Sometimes it was like B crew, and like sorry, the other, like not even like the director was like the second, like a different team entirely shooting it for time. And like just I think the elimination of surprises for the actors is, and also for the director, is like the, I feel like the most beneficial part of our job. Is it just creates a lot of safety and comfort for talent.
Yeah, and which is, as we've talked about on this podcast, the way to foster the most creativity and play and exploration when people feel safe and comfortable. There's I mean, you know, even they make out is like more information than what you get sometimes. Like sometimes it's like they go at it, and you know, and an actor might read that and think they're fully clothed and they kind of pounce and make out with each other, whereas a director might see that as like they tear their clothes off, they're fully naked, and we see them start to finish having sex.
Right.
So the idea is to like get clarity, get really specific about what it is that we want to see and how we're going to show it, so that everyone has all the information that they need to agree. So from there, maybe it's best to start with that video. Did you watch the video of
I think I did. I'm trying to remember. I definitely read your article, and I think I did watch the video.
Okay. Well, so this video already is like, I don't know, like over a month, you know, 6 weeks old or something like that. But what it shows is it starts with the scene description, what's written in the script. And it says, you know, interior bar. And then I'm not going to get the exact words right, but all it really says is Ryle and Lily slow dance at a bar, totally lost in their own world. And that's about it. And then we cut to the footage of this 9-minute clip of them dancing in a bar. Because there was not going to be any sound in this montage that this scene was going to be a part of, the two actors are talking to each other as themselves. They're both talking about their own real life partners. They're talking about what they think they should be doing in the scene. But pretty much immediately you see Justin goes in to kiss Blake on the lips, and you see Blake pull away. So right off the bat, I sort of tensed up because I was like, that's not written in the script. Why are you trying to kiss her? There's a few things that I think I have to contextualize here. One is that if a director wants to see a kind of touch or intimacy or simulated sex or nudity that is not written in the script, that is totally fine. They just have to say so that we can talk about it. And they should bring in an intimacy coordinator at that point, if there isn't one already. 2 is that if an actor wants to do something or feels that their character would do something in a scene where it's not written, that is also totally fine. But again, you have to talk about it. If it's something that you feel in the moment during a take, you would wait till they say cut, and then you would discuss it with your scene partner and the director.
Right. I'm feeling this impulse to do this. How do we feel about that?
Yeah, pretty simple.
Yeah.
Justin Baldoni was both the director and the star of the film. So he did not do either of those two options in either role. Another thing I think that's important to clarify is that there's a lot of discussion around like Blake Lively turned down an intimacy coordinator. There wasn't an intimacy coordinator there for this scene and things like that. So I want to clarify because I have done a bit of research on this. Okay, one is that Blake was asked if she wanted to meet the intimacy coordinator before shooting. Now, we just explained what our prep is like. We have to talk to the actors after we speak to the director. Blake turned down that conversation. She did not turn down having an intimacy coordinator. I think that's really important.
It is. I didn't know that difference.
She turned down meeting the intimacy coordinator before they shoot. Now, for me, that is super annoying. I've been there before.
Yep.
And the last time that happened to me, I told the producer that I was going to quit. And I actually suggested you. Like, I was like, Risdon will be happy to do this, but I don't work like this anymore.
You're like, but Risdon will.
Well, and you would have. Right? Am I wrong?
Oh yeah, I'm a messy bitch. Yeah.
No, I mean, look, it was way below my rate.
Yeah.
It was a movie that already had a bunch of problems. Like, I had already turned down the job before this. And this producer like begged me to come on and then told me that the lead wouldn't speak to me before, and not like with any animosity.
Or just, yeah, they want to make time.
Well, and it comes from a misunderstanding of our job. They don't think we have prep to do.
Yes.
And I'm just at a point in my career where I at that time had been doing this for 5 years already. And I knew that you would have really appreciated the credit and the experience. Yep. Whereas for me, I was like, I don't want to work like this anymore.
Right. Totally.
But I do think that's still an important distinction. She did not turn down having an intimacy coordinator. She turned down that initial prep conversation. Super annoying.
Just interrupt too, that like this has happened to us with more A-listy
yes
people.
Yes.
And then I don't want to disclose too much, but like we go to the trailer on
yeah, it was fine. Like the time that happened, yes. I was annoyed, I was frustrated, and you know what? It went fine.
Yes.
Right? I think a situation like what we're seeing with Blake and Justin like hopefully shows people why you should have that conversation. Yeah. Okay. So that's an important clarification. The second important clarification about that is that when I said that we go through the script and we pull up, we flag any scene that we need to talk to the director about, a scene with the description, they slow dance, is not a scene that I would put in my spreadsheet as a scene that I need to talk to the director about. So that's why I would imagine there was no intimacy coordinator on set that day. There was no, and when I say intimacy, like obviously slow dancing is intimate, like colloquially in real life. But when we talk about intimacy on a set, we're talking about simulated sex, nudity, or something that requires a closed set. And even I would say like a kiss or a grope or something like that. A slow dance? Yeah.
Yeah, I use the term capital I intimacy or lowercase I intimacy sometimes to differentiate.
Yeah, great. So a slow dance, to me, I would not put that on my spreadsheet. Now I would because of this.
Right, even just to be like, do you need me for this?
Okay, right, so do you want to talk about this?
Anything sexy here. Yeah.
Correct. I also want to say, more often than not, I don't get the entire script.
Yeah.
And this is like part of like NDAs and privacy. They just send me the scenes that I'm working on. I have requested the full script in instances like that, and sometimes they give them to me and sometimes they won't. So it's very possible that the intimacy coordinator didn't even know that this scene existed. And when you get hired, they tell you, these are your scenes. These are the days you're required on set. And so it's totally reasonable to assume that the intimacy coordinator was completely unaware that this scene existed or was shooting that day. Or even if they did, that they were told by a producer, no, we don't need you that day.
I was going to say too, this often happens that I've had to like push a little bit to be like,
Yes.
hey, I'm seeing this scene in here, and are you sure you don't need me for that? And they're like, no, because they're very worried about the budget. They don't want to pay me another day rate. And I'm like, I know you need me there, but I can't make you pay me to be there, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So going back to this video clip, Justin tries to kiss Blake. She pulls away. And I heard her go, okay, which I also heard because I did watch the film.
I actually liked the movie, which is fucking crazy. But anyway.
You what?
I kind of liked the movie.
Okay. Okay.
Lively imitation. I love that for you.
Yeah, that's how you know I don't want to kiss you. Literally,
exactly.
like, and there was a moment used in the movie. I'm like pointing to my television as if anyone knows what I'm pointing to. So there is a moment in the movie where I heard her do that same, oh, okay, you know, and it's like during a sex scene. And I was like, how is no one clocking that this is the most I'm hesitant to say unenthusiastic, you know, how I feel about that word. But like, oh my God. I mean, it's like, she does not want to do that. Like, it's so, it feels so obvious to me. And then he does it again. And then she says, and she's like visibly recoiling.
Yeah, there's a leaning back thing happening, right?
Right. And she says, I think we should be talking. You know, I think it's more romantic if we're talking. And then he goes for her neck. It looks like he's kissing her neck. He's on the far side from the camera, so I can't tell exactly what he's doing. And then she says something about how she seems concerned that her spray tan smells weird. And he goes, no, it smells good. And then she makes a joke about, he says something about his nose, and she makes like a joke about the size of his nose. Okay. Anything you want to say about any of that?
No, just the visceral uncomfortableness of it. I mean, this shit is uncomfortable, period. Even for like pros, but this is like weird. It's weird. Yeah. This is not,
Okay, so there's a few things in there that have like been identified like in the press, and a few things that are addressed in like each of like her complaints and then like his rebuttals. So I guess I'll go through them. Okay, one is that she says that he said, you smell so good, which like out of context is weird and creepy. And that he was saying it out of character, you know, like rubbed her the wrong way. That is a point that I don't really agree with her on. Yeah. What I see is that she names something that she's feeling a little self-conscious about, and he tries to assure her that it's fine. Yeah. Now, the word choice is not what I would say. You know, it smells good. Like, I think it would have made more sense to say like, oh no, it's fine. Or like, I hadn't noticed, or like, don't worry about it. Those would have been less perhaps intimate things to say, right? Less charged. But I don't see someone being like overtly creepy and like coming on to somebody there that way. Yeah. What I do see is someone really ignoring cues and going full speed ahead with his idea without adjusting to the person in front of him. there was also something that I believe it was Jamie Heath, like one of the other producers, who like took him aside and said, we're not getting what we want to see here. And so then Justin keeps trying instead of talking to Blake about what it is that they do want to see.
Instead of directing?
Yes. Yes. So instead of saying like, here's what we're going for and here's what we're not getting.
Right.
He just keeps trying to go like bulldoze with his vision and his motive.
Yeah.
I also see, you know, one of the things that they said, like this video proved, was that she was fine, which to me is just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
yeah, blind.
It's a super common and like valid tactic when like saying no is hard, to give other suggestions.
Yeah.
That's what she's doing. And I don't know what is exactly going on in her head, but what I do know is that even an A-list celebrity of her stature, and especially someone of her stature and her experience level, is hyper aware that you are on a schedule, very tight time constraints, you are on a budget, and she's aware of the hierarchy of a set. He is in charge, and that there are dozens of people around. There's background. There's also every single person who works on this movie present, watching what's going on. So she's not, out of courtesy for him, she's not going to say, don't do that.
You're making me uncomfortable. I'm calling cut. It's like, also people are like, well, she's the A-lister. It's like, you don't understand the dynamics of a set. Like, he is actually more in the power dynamic superior than she is, even though she's the household name, whatever. That's not how it works on set. And also, because she's an A-lister, because she is a household name, she is trying so hard to not be the quote difficult actress. Like,
that's right.
She could be like, you know, this isn't okay with me, and storm into her trailer, and then what would happen?
Right.
I don't know. How about a smear campaign?
You know? Oh, yeah. And who would do that?
Who would do that?
You know, and the other thing is that actors are aware that the words that they're saying are being recorded and listened to by every single person who has a headset on set.
Yeah, and
so
all the people watching the dailies. Yeah.
Right. So she's not going to do anything that undermines him in front of his crew or embarrasses him in front of all these people. I actually see someone trying so hard to be so courteous towards him in this moment where she is visibly terribly uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, you know, not to totally take us off base, but what I keep seeing is people trying to be like, Blake Lively is difficult, Blake Lively has bad character, and I'm like, I don't really care.
Me neither.
I don't care if she's a bitch. I don't care if she's mean. I don't care if she's nasty. I don't care if she's rude.
A diva.
Whatever. Yeah, good for it. Whatever, fine, baby, be a diva. But like, she doesn't deserve to have to navigate this, which I guess is to be put over and over again in an uncomfortable and compromised position because the person in power at her job is not doing his job correctly, which is to outsource that power dynamic and diffuse it by hiring an intimacy coordinator. And I think this is something you brought up earlier too, off this, like we were just chatting. There's this thing right now in Hollywood where they keep like asking the lead actress if she wants an intimacy coordinator. And you brought up a great point, which is like, nobody asks if you want a stunt coordinator. Nobody asks if you want, I forget what weapons people are called. They're like armorists or something. Like, you know, like you have to have one.
Yeah.
So shit like this doesn't happen. We're protecting people.
Yeah, that's been something really upsetting to me about the whole story of Nora. And, you know, and that like it's sort of championed as like, like Sean Baker created like such a comfortable set dynamic environment that Mickey didn't even feel like she needed one. And it's like, that's not what this is. That's not what this is. You do not offer, do you want a stunt coordinator for that fist fight scene? No, you say, here's your stunt coordinator, meet so-and-so,
You think you can do it safely or not? I'm not putting my production in that kind of jeopardy.
Right. Even actors who do their own stunts, you get a coordinator. You still get a coordinator.
Yes.
And so I don't know why sex scenes are not being handled the same way. It's really frustrating. It's just nonsensical to me.
Yes.
If Justin wanted to see kissing in this scene, he just needed to talk about it ahead of time. And he just needed to say, let's bring the intimacy coordinator in for this scene. That's it. Like, that would have taken care of it. So there was something I was going to say about, I don't remember.
Yeah, I took us off path there. Sorry.
It's okay.
We were talking about the scene.
Yeah.
The power dynamic.
Oh, well, I was going to say, I said that I don't really see like this creepy, you smell so good comment. But what I do see is someone who is just so at the end of her rope because of the mounting pile of experiences that she's been having, where like it's like just another thing on top of the pile.
Yeah, I feel like when I've had experiences with people being creepy, or I felt like they were being creepy, it's like the 10th thing they said is the thing that I was like, you know what, that's enough. And it wasn't because the 10th thing was more creepy.
That's right.
It was the culmination, right?
There was an article that came out last week about how Jenny Slate also submitted a complaint about a conversation she had with Jamie Heath. A lot of what I'm seeing like in that complaint, and a lot of what I'm seeing in like stuff that people are saying, people who have had somewhat negative experiences with, and actually I saw this in quotes from Justin's TED Talk that he did that led to his podcast and his book and blah blah. There's a lot of like worship of women, like veneration of women, which is absolutely not a feminism that I subscribe to. Like that is pedestalization, which is dehumanization. So that's what was in Jenny Slate's complaint. It was about like the sanctity of motherhood comments that he made. And so I thought of, two things. One is that that must have been not the first thing that happened for her, like, because as you said, you don't make a complaint the first time. You make a complaint when there's a pattern of behavior. And then the second thing was that, like, as I was reading this LA Times article, this profile on Justin Baldoni that came out last night, there was quite a bit of stuff that was feeling like this pedestalization of women, and like that's the feminism that he's touting. But the second thing was that he also talks about the way that he fears pedestalization, for himself, that the higher the pedestal, the farther you have to fall, which is very similar to what I've talked about that. We've talked about
this is a thing for you. I think that's why you can see it so easily.
Right. And I do experience that in my line of work. I'm sorry, I have to clear my throat. I got to do one big one.
Okay, great.
Okay. Oh, it's still there. I'm recovering from a cold. Oh, yeah, I didn't want to put the audience to that. So in my line of work, I do experience getting put on a pedestal a lot. I've had people tell me they revere me, they're in awe of me, that I'm saving their lives. Like, I hear this again and again. I know you're laughing, but Risdon, like, it's scary. It's scary. Like, it makes me not feel safe.
It comes up in surrogate partner work too, where it's like a lot of reject the sexual healer thing. It's like, I'm just another human being here in front of you, and like trying to humanize yourself in my line of work is like, it's very different, but it's hard. People want to venerate.
Yes. Yeah. And I've talked and written about like the way that people have, especially like social media you know, what do we call that? Influencers, like, become like, prophets of your own privately curated religion that populate your feed, you know, with like bite-sized spiritual nuggets.
Ugh.
So yes, so I have experienced that quite a bit. And as I was reading quotes from him talking about how he fears getting pedestalized and he knows that that's like a risk of putting himself in the position that he's in, honestly, I really related. Like, I really was like, but I get it. Like, I get it. I see that. And it is really scary. And especially when you do like social justice oriented work, there's like always going to be people will extra scrutinize you and they will look for micro instances of hypocrisy so that they can tear you down. I mean, and you know, I've experienced this, like when my book deal got canceled last year. Like, this has real life implications. And it's also part of why I've tried to move away from social justice circles and activism. But anyway, it was interesting to me that he is aware of the phenomenon of himself getting pedestalized, but seemingly blind to the fact that he's doing that to women.
Yeah, and I'm taking us off a little bit, but I'm also like one of my biggest problems with Baldoni is that not, and I'm saying making it seem like a character thing, but the reason that I just kind of feel like he's full of shit, I'm just gonna say that, I'm sorry, is like you have a podcast about positive, healthy masculinity, and you aren't being like, where the fuck is the intimacy coordinator? I'm sorry, but like that's just, but I'm just, it's not hypocrisy to me. It's just, I just don't buy what you're selling. If you're not walking the walk and doing the work, I just don't buy it. I think it's you've found a convenient social justice, whatever thing. Of course, women want to listen to the hot guy in a man bun talk about how to be a better man. I'm sure, you know what I mean? But like, are you actually about that life? Because I don't buy it.
Well, I'm even like, I think he is about that life. And I think that that life has a lot wrong with it. You know, there's like, because of the way that the feminism that he's touting
Yes.
is so problematic to me, you know.
Yeah, with this like,
yeah, it's a very like cis heteronormative take on feminism, and it's not equality.
no, and it's male lensy, and it's still it's a little like a cote like close to this like spiritual gendery thing with the like divine feminine, divine masculine. It's like, bro, like that's just Blake Lively's your coworker. Like, just be a good coworker, dude.
Well, I want to go there, but first, what I want to say is that in this LA Times profile, something came up that I was unaware of, which is his Baha'i faith, and that like he's working with a lot of people who are Baha'i or are converts, and that's fine. I'm Jewish, I'm religious, I'm a practicing, you know, like I have no problem with that, and it does absolutely make its way into my work. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. However, the way that it became like the way that it's described is that it sort of became like used as like the foundation of a lot of the work and like the mission of the company. And it was giving me culty vibes. It was really giving culty vibes. I'm not going to say I think it is a cult. I just was getting this real, like, my spidey senses were going off about that.
Yeah.
To your point about them being coworkers, I think, you know, you described it as a pirate ship, and I think that's so on point. I think that it's really hard for people who've never worked in this industry to remember that co-stars or a director and actor, excuse me, are co-workers at their job. They are at work. No, they don't work in a cubicle. And yes, sometimes their job description includes that they have to kiss their coworker, right? Which is like weird and not normal in the workplace. So we do have to contend with the ways that it's very different, but they are at work and they are coworkers. And I think when you put it in that framework, it's like everyone can understand that you don't just spring a kiss on your coworker.
Right.
if it's in your job description to kiss your coworker, you talk about it.
Right.
It used to be that sometimes because it was written, people wouldn't talk about it. And in my work, I'll often say to people, like, we're not doing this kiss just because it's written on the page. We're doing it because we're talking about it and we're agreeing to it and everyone is on board. But in this scene, it wasn't even written.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even in the script. So without a conversation, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here?
For real.
You're just trying to kiss your coworker without talking to her about it.
Right. And I don't think that it's because he's hot for Blake Lively. I think it's because
No.
he got the A-list actress in this fucking random movie and is like, I'm going to make as much use of her as I can, which is I want to show me as the hot male lead against this A-list actress as much as possible. The movie is full of gratuitous sex and making out. It's so chock full of it that it's like unnecessary. Like, does Jason or Justin? I don't care. Does Baldoni own a shirt in this movie? Like, I swear to God. But I get it. It's. I think that's the thing too. We have to talk about is that like this is his ticket movie. Like,
I know
everything before this was like him producing or directing or whatever. Like, this is his big breakout movie. He got Blake fucking Lively to be in this movie with him. Like,
and he's directing and starring in it. I know.
He's gonna be a movie star after this,
right?
And that got taken away from him because he fucked up.
Right. I was wondering like what a different world we'd be in with this debacle if he, and this would have been more aligned with the values that he, you know, claims to live by. Like if he received this list of complaints and all this, you know, all this feedback and stuff, and if he had said, I'm seeing that I have a pattern of like pushing boundaries and not communicating as well as I could, and I'm gonna work on that.
Well, I wonder if there was somebody I could hire to
Yeah,
help me
I
do that.
wonder who does that kind of thing.
If only there was a position that helped me navigate other people's boundaries on set and communication. Wow, they really should invent something like that.
Or someone that I could do one-on-one, like tailored education
about consent and communication.
Yeah.
Or even relational repair.
Yeah.
I mean, I've like worked in the cancellation space for a while, and I was like every day checking the Are We Man Enough podcast to be like, where's the statement? Where's the fucking statement? I'm not talking about the statement, but just something that's like, we're aware of what's happening. We're taking time to reflect, etc. Nothing.
Right. I mean, Liz Plank,
yes,
who was the woman on the show, there were 3 hosts, left pretty quickly, which, you know, I know that sometimes people really have like knee-jerk reactions and they're like, I have to pull the plug, and they betray people. I mean, I experienced that, you know, my editor did that, my book agent did that. Like, I know that people act really urgently in these situations, but ostensibly she knew this guy pretty well for a few years, right?
Yeah.
And is intimately aware of like his views.
Yep.
So I have to imagine either that, I know that wasn't a decision that she made lightly, but there can't have been 0 clues to this, right? Because otherwise, like it would have been a different world if she had said like, had put out a character defense of him.
Yes. And I think, I think she even said like, I've reached out to him. He hasn't responded to text messages. It's like in her post, and she never really mentions his name. She never really mentions what's going on. She's just like, I have been put into a decision where I have to step away because I've been given no options, is kind of how it's articulated. And I also think, but I do want to say too, that like, listen, I don't want to say that this man, quote, is an abuser, because I hate that language.
No, I don't. Right. I don't even.
But yeah. I want to say this. I do think there's this narrative often that it's like, we think that the way people act differently with different people. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Liz Plank had only exclusively had positive experiences with this man. Like, I don't think that she, like, just because he treated Blake Lively one way doesn't mean that he treated Liz Plank that way.
It also doesn't even mean that he treated Blake Lively that way all the time.
Right.
I think where I want to end, because I don't know how
Yes.
we've been talking this long. I feel like we have so
I'm
much
like, we could
more
talk
to go.
about
I literally, like, before we started, I was like, let's keep it to 45 minutes.
Right.
Impossible.
Impossible.
But what I really want to kind of close on is like, what I'm not seeing here is like someone who knows how to practice consent in an ongoing way beyond or even including permission
Yeah.
some of the time.
Yep.
But when I zoom out, I'm like, he's not any different from your average person. Like most people, and I'm not even saying men, please notice, like
Yes.
most people do not know how to do that, because that's not how we teach consent. We say no means no, and Blake never said no, you know, and we teach like anything other than an enthusiastic yes is a no. We do not teach people how to engage in consent as a practice,
Yeah.
as a dynamic part of a relationship.
Right.
And then the representation of consent that we see in the media, in our rom-coms and stuff, is atrocious. It's atrocious. So I don't even think he's a bad guy. I don't even think he's a creep, you know. There's like a lot of stuff coming up that maybe gives me a little bit of the heebie-jeebies, but I also don't, you know, that movie wasn't for me. I'm not its intended audience. Like so there's just a lot of like his aesthetic and his vibe and his taste that I like don't subscribe to, that I don't feel included in. But like, I just feel like this is an example of like how piss poor our consent education is. And and I do believe that he wants to be good and do better. Like, I do actually believe that.
Yeah.
So when someone who really does feel that way acts this way, my mind goes, we need to help people so that they can do better than this.
Right.
Not be like, fuck you forever, you don't get to work anymore, you know, if you don't win this, your career is over.
Right. Which is clearly what he's decided, but
yes, because everyone seems to be receiving, myself included, letters from his lawyers saying, please do not tamper with or destroy any communication correspondence between you and then this like long list of parties of people who I'm like, you think I'm like talking with Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds? Like, do you think they hired me? Like, what do you think is going on? I literally was like contacted by a report. I have no relationship with any of these people.
bananas.
Yeah.
That's where I start to just be like, it's giving fish market. Like it doesn't just smell fishy in here, baby. It's giving fish market.
You are the fish market.
It's a little much for me.
Yeah, it's very desperate to me. And it's also like, yeah, I mean, I just would love to see him be like, I'm gonna learn to communicate better. And that, you know, I mean, Blake, whatever. I don't want to make character. They both seem, there was a question, there was like a headline that was like, who's lying? You know? And I spoke to that, I think, in that article, where I was like, I don't think anyone's lying. Like, I don't think that anyone thinks they're lying. I think that generally the capital T truth is something we will never find, because all relationships and communication between people exists in our perception of what happened, which is entirely subjective. And even you see that, like, even when we have filmed footage of what happened, everyone has a different experience of what happened and a different interpretation of what happened.
People being like, this proves one thing, and other people being like, it actually proves the opposite, and it's the same evidence. Like, it's very fascinating.
I know. Yeah, I mean, that's why I come to this work from like the philosophical standpoint of like, I don't really believe in like a single reality.
Right. Postmodernism. Yeah. Post-structure.
Yeah. But also, but then it's like, well, how do you apply that worldview to like our justice system? And like, you can't, because they're completely incompatible.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to stop. I have to go. I'm sorry.
Anyway, everybody watch It Ends With Us, available now on Netflix.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I don't want to do a show where we talk about the movie as a piece of, I'm not going to say art.
Art?
Yeah, a piece of movie.
Flick. I'll call it a flick.
It's a flick. It's a flick. Yeah, whatever. Let's not go there. Yeah. Okay, next time we're going to talk about how to actually make consent sexy, because that's another bumper sticker. Consent is sexy. And we want to get into like actually how you do that in practical terms. So
come back when we do this again, which hopefully won't be another 6 months.
6 months from now. Yeah. No, we're back. We're back.
We're so back, man.
We're back.
Okay, bye.
All right. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.